It has been 100 years since the end of World War I. The armistice signed in 1918 was supposed to bring the world together. But a group of American soldiers who were fighting for freedom and democracy had yet to experience those ideals in their own country. On the fourth floor of the new Smithsonian Museum, so just how segregated was the military?
It was completely segregated.
Is a tribute to American veterans, the freedmen of the Massachusetts 54th, the Buffalo Soldiers, the Tuskegee Airmen, and a regiment with an unforgettable nickname. Do we know why these guys were called the Harlem Hellfighters?
I really don't think we do, whether it was the French, whether it was the Germans, or whether it was the American press.
Kowalski Salter is a guest curator at the Museum of African American History and Culture.
The Harlem Hellfighters is a name, no matter where the origin came from, sticks to the heart of the way these men served and fought.
A band of brothers who faced adversity from the start.
Where are they sent to be trained? In Spartanburg, South Carolina. You have these northern African Americans going down in the heart of this era where there are these riots, clashes between white Americans and African Americans.
Among the first American troops to arrive in France, their first few months weren't spent fighting.
Digging ditches.
Digging latrines.
Digging latrines, making roads, building camps.
Why?
Well, there are many reasons, but I think a part of it, there was a political pull. And then there was this issue. Some of the white Americans did not want African American units to fight.
But the European allies were desperate for fighters. So Commanding General John Pershing handed over the all-black unit to the French. The 369th served 191 days in combat, more than any other American troops.
The Germans saw that these men fought ferociously on the battlefield.
Some weren't just fighting. Lieutenant James Europe led the Hellfighters Regiment Band. The group was credited with bringing jazz to the French.
Every regiment had a band, but there was no band like a 369th band. And they combined this new music that was heard from the very time they set foot off the ship. And they were sent on a tour around France.
But the battlefield was where they made their name. Their most famous act of heroism happened in May of 1918. Privates Henry Johnson and Needham Roberts were sentries at an isolated outpost when they were attacked by at least a dozen Germans.
And so during that fight, while Johnson runs out of bullets, he's throwing grenades, he's using his rifle as a club, and he ends up using his bolo knife. He also prevents Germans from dragging his buddy, Needham Roberts, away.
Johnson and Roberts would become the first American soldiers of any race to receive the Croix de Guerre, one of France's highest awards for valor.
That was the night that the bravery, the patriotism, and the service of what African Americans were capable of and willing to do for their country became known throughout the world.
More than 150 other Hellfighters were given the Croix de Guerre, including Lawrence McVeigh Sr.
This one is his military uniform.
He looks so proud.
He does.
Gina McVeigh is the corporal's granddaughter.
When did you discover the true story?
About 2004 or 5, I went to the car dealership to get my car repaired. There was a gentleman in uniform sitting next to me waiting for his car. So I thanked him for his service, and I said, "Oh, my grandfather fought in the war." He goes, "He did?" I said, "Yeah, World War I." And I said, "He won this French medal." He said, "What?" I said, "He won a French medal." He goes, "Well, can I ask you a question?" I said, "Yes." He goes, "Was your grandfather a black man?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Was the medal the Croix de Guerre?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Do you know what you have?" I'm like, "A medal?" He said, "No, you have history."
McVeigh contacted the Smithsonian and was asked to bring in her grandfather's belongings.
I said, "It's all yours." And they're like, "Really?" I said, "Yeah, I donated all."
despite enduring more days in combat than any other American troops, despite being the first allies to reach the Rhine River, despite no member ever being taken prisoner. The American government refused them an important honor.
They were not allowed to march in the victory parade. The U.S. government said, no, they can't march. This was in France.
But in February of 1919, the Hellfighters were allowed to parade up New York City's Fifth Avenue to Harlem.
You see the pride of these men. And when you watch that formation, you know it's there.
An even greater sense of pride came in 2015, when one of the Hellfighters received the ultimate award from America's first black president.
The President of the United States of America has awarded in the name of Congress the Medal of Honor to Private Henry Johnson, United States Army.
It's just amazing that all of the things that the African American community has done with the weight of not being good enough on their back. They didn't let that stop them. They went ahead and they fought for what they thought was right.
What's great about her story is that she was just thanking a veteran for his service. And she got so much more. And it was a white veteran, which goes to the point, I want to give a shout out to Colonel William Hayward. He was the officer over the 369th, this all-black unit. He gave them respect. He gave them honor. And what he did was bring attention to them. He's one of the reasons why they were able to get that parade up to Harlem.
Wow.
And why many people believe the Croix de Guerre was bestowed upon them.
And I love what Gina McVeigh said when that man said, do you know what you have? You have history.